Hello everyone, welcome to AWS Tutorials. In AWS Tutorial, you will learn about AWS services. Today, we are going to talk how you can use Athena query result reuse feature to enhance query performance and also save cost when running the query. So let's get started. So as we know, Amazon Athena is a serverless interactive analytics service which can be used to query and analyze large-scale data stored in different data stores, say data sources such as relational databases or Redshift or S3 bucket. And you can do such analysis using both SQL and Python code. So basically, the way it works is that in Athena, you actually catalog your data source. Now here I'm taking example of an S3 bucket, but data source could be into some external Hive store, or it can also be in a relational database or in a NoSQL database or in Redshift, and you can catalog that data. And then once you have cataloged the data, you can use Athena to query the data. And then through Athena, there are various services and tools which can query the data. So in a simplest way, you can actually use AWS Management Console, and using Athena console over there, you can make your query and analyze the data. You can also use APIs, so you can use Amazon Athena APIs to make query to such data. Or you can also use reporting tools. So if you use, for instance, QuickSight, or if you're using Power BI or Tableau, any of these reporting tools, each of these reporting tools, they come with their own Athena driver, and using those drivers, you can also query data. So as you can see, Athena is a tool which can be used to query a large amount of data using both SQL and Python code. So let's try to understand how this query works, and then I will talk about the feature which can help you optimize the query performance and also save the cost. So let's try to understand how query works in Athena. So let's take example that suppose I have my business data in S3 bucket which I have cataloged, and then I'm using Athena to query it. So in Athena, you go and run a query. Suppose I'm running a SQL query over here, then this query will simply go and scan the data, scan your business data in the S3 bucket, and then we'll try to create the result for your query. Once it has created the result for your query, then it will simply store that query result into another S3 bucket, and this S3 bucket you can configure, and if you have not configured, then it will use some default configuration, default location to go and store your query results. And then Athena gets its query back to the user from this query result. So pretty straightforward flow of execution, where you simply raise a query, and then this query will simply scan your data, your business data, to create the query results. Once the query results are created, they are stored into S3 bucket, and from that S3 bucket location, the query results are presented back to Amazon Athena. Now, the way this query results reuse feature works is that you can actually cache your query result. So you can say this query result I'm going to reuse for next 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or 1 day. So if you think that you have a query, because I mean, many times we come across use cases where people are running same kind of query, or different users are running same kind of query, and data is not going to change for say next 1 day. Suppose some data feeds comes with a daily refresh or weekly refresh, and then people simply make query on that data. And that team of 10 people, 10 reporting users who are making the same kind of query. And in that case, actually, you can configure your query result to be cached or query result to be reused. And in that case, you can simply avoid running the query again and again, and you can serve the query outcome through this cached result. So let's try to understand that how this query result reuse or caching works. But before I do that, let's talk quickly about how do you configure this query result reuse. So basically, it's a per query configuration. So for each of the query for which you want to cache the result or for which you want to reuse the query result, you can simply enable this toggle button, which can simply say I want to enable query result for this query. And then by default, it is actually it is doing caching for 60 minutes. But if you want, you can actually you can modify the reuse time or caching time, and you can say, hey, I want to make it larger. So you can see here that you can configure your caching or reuse time period to minimum 1 minute or maximum 180 minutes. So basically you can configure your caching time or reuse time, and once you do that, and this you have to do per query. Per query you want to reuse the result. And when you do that, in the time period you have configured reuse to be, the query results are given back from the previous query results. The query is not run again. So let's try to understand how this whole flow works so that you can understand it better. So suppose we come across this kind of scenario where I have my data, business data, which I have cataloged, and I'm running using Athena to query the data. Then I have a bucket which I'm using for storing my query result. And suppose I'm running a query and I have said I want to reuse the query result, and I want to, and my reuse time is 60 minutes. So what happens first time when you run this SQL query? Basically, SQL query goes to the S3 bucket for the business data. It will scan the business data, it will create the query result, and it will store the query result in the S3 bucket. This flow I have already talked earlier, and then you get this query result back to the Athena. So this is when you run it first time, but this time I have run this query with query result reuse enabled for 60 minutes. So suppose within 60 minutes, I or someone else run the same query again. So it could be me or it could be some other user as well. Yeah, it could be anyone who is running the same SQL query again. So suppose then in that case, this query will not run and scan data anymore. It will simply reuse the query result. So whatever query result came out of the previous query, that has been kind of cached, you can say, and then from that you get your query result. So this query will not go and do any scanning, any query run, any kind of temporary data creation, nothing. None of those things will happen. It will simply give you result back from the query result. Suppose again me or some other user within 60 minutes tried the same query again. Again, the query will be the result will be given back from the query result. The query will not run on the business data. But suppose again me or someone else after 60 minutes. Now these two queries I run within 60 minutes. Now I'm doing it after 60 minutes. After the reuse time, if I run this query, it will behave like the first query. So first you will run the query, then it will go to the business data, it will scan the data, will store the query result in S3 bucket, and then will derive it from the query result S3 bucket. So that's how this whole configuration works. For the query, you can configure the reuse time period and enable it, and once you do that, within that reuse time period, if the same query is run again, your data is not scanned at all. Your data is all the results are given back to you from the query results, and that way it benefits in two ways actually. So first, it enhances query performance, because you are not, for not every query you are scanning the data and creating temporary data and results, and because creating a result is not a simple thing. I mean, you create a lot of subquery behind the scene. It creates a lot of subqueries and temporary data, temporary tables, joins them to give the result. All those things, and doing a lot of scanning of the data. All those things you are not doing at all when you use query result reuse. So you are enhancing your query performance. At the same time, you are saving the cost as well, because in Athena, the cost of the Athena service is the amount of data you scanned to get your results. Now in this case, first time the data is scanned, but not the second, third, or fourth time till the query made within the reuse time period. So you are not scanning data again and again and again. So it saves cost for you as well, because you are not you're not scanning data, and Athena is charged based on amount of data you are scanning to give the query result. So it helps you both query performance wise as well as cost saving wise. So few details to keep in mind when you are going to reuse to use query result reuse. First of all, it is for the reuse, the query should be the same. Now users could be different. It could be like I am making a query, then someone else is making the query, and someone else is making the query. That is fine as long as the query is the same. You can reuse. You can use query result reuse. Second thing, it is enabled per query. This is very important to understand. It is not that and one place you say, hey, simply cache every query. It doesn't work that way. You have to say that for this particular query, I am going to enable query result reuse, and then simply it will be reused. It works within the same reuse works within the same work group. So like I said, that different users can make the same query, but as long as these users are using the same Athena work group, they can reuse the query. So Athena work group should not be different, because this caching or reuse works at the work group level. So as long as your different users are making query within the same work group, you're good to go. You can use result reuse. Now one more thing to important which I forgot to document it here is that it works with Amazon Athena engine 3.0 or above. So keep that thing in mind. Now currently, this such query reuse can be used from console, which I'm going to actually show you today in the demo. Using Athena APIs, I will show you a reference to APIs as well, but I'm not going to run the API, but I'll show you what parameter you can pass in the API to enable query reuse. And then you can also use JDBC driver. So these three approaches are currently supported. Now what is not supported at present is ODBC drivers are not supported. Row and column level permission, which you can configure in your AWS Cloud Formation, that is not supported. Federated catalogs or external Hive meta stores. So Athena can be used for creating federated query or can also connect to the external Hive meta stores, but these two are not supported. Apache Iceberg table, which can be used for incremental data creation and updates, those are not supported, and lake formation register tables are not supported. So these are some of the capabilities for which query result reuse is not supported. So what we are going to see in the demo today. So I have created, I have some data in S3 bucket. Actually, I went to Kaggle and downloaded some dogs breed data, which is some 300K rows of data. I cataloged it. Then I'm going to use Amazon Athena through AWS Management Console to query data, and I will show you if I enable query reuse, how it is going to enhance my performance and also save my cost. So let's go to AWS Console and see the demo. So here we are at AWS Management Console. If I go to my Amazon S3 buckets, Dojo, my data, dogs, breed, there I have saved some data. So this data I got from Kaggle, and simply I uploaded it over here for the demo purpose. Then I went to glue cataloged and I simply catalog the data. So you can see I catalog this dog breeds folder and in Dojo database with the dogs breeds table name. And if I see the schema, this is how the schema look like. It has got license type, breed, color, dog name, ownership, ownership, and so on. So looks good to me. Now what I need to do is let's go to Athena and try to query this data. So you can see here dogs breed table is there. So let's see first that how many records are there in this table. Before I do that, I think I must show you this one because this is very important. So I said that you run your query within the work group. And in this case, I'm using primary as the work group. So if I go to my work groups, if I go to, if I see the version of my primary work group, this is Athena engine version 3. This is very important, guys, because you cannot use query result reuse unless your Athena engine version is 3. Okay, so if you happen to run this kind of query, please make sure that your analytics engine is Athena engine version 3 for the work group you are using. Now let's come back to query editor. So I'm saying select count star from, and if I drag this table, run it, and I should get results. So you can see here it has got more than 300,000 rows of the record. If I simply see my data, let's limit it to 10. This is how my result look like. So it has license type, breed, color, dog name, ownership, yeah, and then year and validate date. So one thing which I'm going to use in my demo, so when you run such query, it shows you what is the runtime, what is the query runtime, execution time, and how much data it scanned to give you the result, how much S3 bucket data it scanned to give you results. So this will give you performance. If I lower this one, it's going to give me a performance, better performance. And if I lower this one, it's going to save me a cost. Okay, so now I'm going to write some query. So let me copy paste this query here. So I'm saying I want to query from dog breed. So I'm trying to make little complex query. It's not very complex. So I want to see, well, I don't want to use color. I want to use, for instance, license type, because I don't want to, I want to make sure that I've run this query earlier, so I want to make sure that I'm not reusing the shame cache. So I'm saying, let's see that what is the count of the dog breeds, or dogs, not dog breeds, dogs per license type. So you can run any query, but I'm simply using this query as an example. So and then I simply enable here my reuse query results. Okay, see, so I'm configuring it for a query. This is very important. So that I'm configuring this one, the reuse query result for this particular query. And by default, it is 60 minutes, but I click on this one. Actually, you can go and change this to your reuse time to something else. But let's keep it 60 minutes. So now I'm going to run this query. So when I run this query, hopefully the query is right, I get my results back. So it says these are different license types and these are different count of the dogs per license type. Fair enough. Now let's see how long it took. It took more than 1 second, little more than 1 second to give me the result. And it scanned 25 MB of data. So it scanned 25 MB of data to give me the results. So now I'm going to run. Now since I have configured the reuse query results, now the result of this query is cached for me, or is going to be reused for any other query which is similar query or same query. Yeah. So now I'm going to run this query one more time. So when I run this query one more time, I got the same result back, but guess the magic happened here. Now my runtime is 170 milliseconds, not more than 1 second, but 170 milliseconds. So you can see the kind of performance you can get. I mean, like I was looking at AWS documentation, they say your query performance can enhance 5 times or more if you enable reuse query results. And if you look at so this is going to enhance my performance. So from 1 second to 170 milliseconds. And here my data scanned is null. I scanned no data for this because it simply gave me result from the query result. So I saved time here, I saved cost here because for this result I scanned no data and I got my result back. So that was what I wanted to show you today, that how you can enable query result caching in Athena to optimize your query performance and also save the cost. Hope you liked the video, and if you liked the video, please click on the like button. Please subscribe to my channel. I promise to come back again in with another video in a week's time or so. In the meantime, please stay safe and have a nice day. Bye bye.